Hey, good evening, guys. So we're the Tripwire Pod. Before we get started with our normal intro, just wanted to kind of share some words and some condolences to the Tagliere family. For those of you who haven't heard, I'm sure most people have at this point. Mike Tags lost his fight with COVID-19 over the weekend, and so he was just a pillar in the industry. He's a great guy and a great family man. So we just wanted to share our condolences for his family. There is a GoFundMe out there right now. We put that link in the show in the comments. The community has been awesome right now. Last I checked, it was over $363,000, which is just incredible. So love to just keep supporting his family and well wishes to them. So just want to start the show off with that, and we're going to kick off for the rest of the show. So thank you. All right, thanks, guys. Sorry, there's no easy transition for that, but I just wanted to start with that. So we are the Tripwire Pod. I'm joined tonight by Tobe at Z2 Fantasy and Alex at Alex Mateo 94, and I am Zach at FF Chalupa Batman. I hope you guys are all having a great night. Excited for a huge matchup tonight between the Eagles and the Cowboys. So we might as well just get right into that real quick. So Alex is paying off a bet from week one with Tobe over Quez Watkins being a thing. He did great week two, not so much great week one. So
week early, so had to improvise a little bit. Said I'd feel a little trashy wearing this Cowboys attire, so went very, very literal and a homemade Dallas Cowboys trash bag.
There you go. And I am a Cowboys fan, so I'm wearing my shirt to rep the Cowboys for tonight. And then our buddy Joe couldn't join us tonight. He was caught with an emergency at work. So we hope he's able to watch, and hopefully he'll be back next week. But he is also an Eagles fan. So him and I have a bet. So we're doing a water bet. So if Cowboys win, he's getting wet. And if the Eagles win, then I'll be getting wet.
That was a terrible sentence.
That's true. With water from a water bet. Let me make that clear. Thank you for clarifying, Tobe. I appreciate it. So as you guys know, this is the Tripwire Pod. We are part of the Triple Play Fantasy family. We're here every Monday night, right before Monday Night Football. We'll be on Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook. We're here to talk to you about waiver wire pickups for the next week. Get you started early, so that way you can put in your waivers for tomorrow for them to run Wednesday. Waivers are a big deal. You don't win your league at the draft. It's about making the right moves on the waiver wire that wins you championships, and we are here to help you win championships. So I kind of want to touch on that real quick. Some of you might be already won your matchup this week. You could be 3-0, which is awesome. You could be 0-3, or you could have a win or two here and there. But you're not out of it yet. It's a long season. Even if you've taken some injuries, this is where really managing your team makes a difference. You're gonna have a lot of probably league mates that don't do anything with their team, and bye weeks are coming up. But now's the time to start really fine-tuning your roster and making those moves. That's why waiver wire is important. You might make a move now that could help you in 3 weeks. So it's important to always kind of do this legwork if you're trying to make the playoffs. 0-3 is not a time to give up. That just means you just got to grind a little harder. Yeah. All right. Yeah. So as always, everyone, all the players we're talking about are rostered in 50% or less on ESPN. And we'll kick it off with the QBs. Honestly, a lot of these guys we've already talked about in previous weeks, but they're actually still performing well. And their rostership hasn't gone up above 50% yet. So the first one that's the closest is Daniel Jones. I know he's a hot pickup last week. Stats-wise, he didn't look that great on the final stat sheet because he didn't have any touchdowns. But if you actually watch the game, he actually looked very competent, and he was just missing some touchdowns. So how do you guys feel about Daniel Jones?
I feel okay about him. I love the matchup last week against Atlanta. New Orleans is a little bit different, but I watch his receivers. Shepard got hurt with a hamstring. I think Slayton also had a hamstring. So watch his receivers and see if they're active, inactive, because he did look good last week. And with them getting Barkley more involved as well, it's going to open things up for him as well. But Superflex, he should already be rostered. But if you're searching for a backup quarterback or you have a bye week coming up, his schedule opens up a little bit in the coming weeks. So he's one to look at.
Yeah, I agree there. He's a guy like I'm okay taking a shot on if I need a backup quarterback or if you have someone who's been dealing with injuries. Myself, I got lucky enough to have 2 in a 1 quarterback league. Since he went down, I actually picked up Daniel Jones. So if he's a guy who's going to be filling in like that you don't need to rely on all season, he's definitely a decent pickup for it.
Yeah, and I wouldn't put too much fab at this point. If he's still available in your league, I don't think anyone
at this point.
Yeah, I don't think anyone in your league's interested unless they all of a sudden just really hate their current quarterback. So you can definitely bid low. Honestly, all the quarterbacks we're talking about tonight, I don't think you have to bid much on fab. Jameis Winston's the next one on the roster percentage at 34.9%. He had an up and down game, but he gets the Giants going against Daniel Jones next week, and that defense has been, I would say, average at best, and they just lost their best defensive player to an ACL injury with Blake Martinez. But that offense has been crazy. They looked amazing week 1, looked horrible week 2. They were missing a bunch of coaches. And now week 3, they didn't look bad, but it was much more of a running game. So are we feeling any confidence with Jameis Winston?
I mean, he hasn't thrown over 150 yards yet in 3 weeks. And we thought with Jameis Winston being named the starter, he was just going to come out and gunsling and everything. And he looks good at times, but he's Jameis Winston. He's always going to look good at some points, look bad. I'm not really too interested in because Taysom Hill looked like he was going to get in a lot more work in the coming weeks because I think that Sean Payton's just crush. So I would temper expectations on Winston even after that great week 1. He threw 5 touchdowns on 20 pass attempts, and you're not going to see that very often. But if he starts to light it up again once some of his receivers get healthy, then I'd be back in on him. But until then, he'd probably be my least favorite out of this list that we have going on right here.
Yeah, I agree. I want to see more.
Guy, I would just let someone else burn a roster spot, burn their fab on him. It's not worth it.
Yep. I just want to say I appreciate the shout out from Sage, a great guy out there. If you don't follow him, check him out. So our next one is Kirk Cousins. He's actually probably my favorite on this list. I think he's a QB6 right now, which is incredible. And they've been throwing it. We talked about it last week, how much they've been throwing it. And they kept doing that. It wasn't a blowout game. I mean, it was close against Seattle last week, and they still threw a lot. Granted, Cook was out, but Madison still ran a lot too. That offense just seems to kind of be humming for what they have. And out of all these guys, I wouldn't mind starting Kirk and having him for the rest of the season if I didn't feel confident in my current quarterback.
Yeah, Cousins shouldn't be available in most leagues at this point. Like, yes, he's not going to win you your league with the dual threat upside, but he's been throwing the rock. We talked about him after week 1. We talked about him after week 2. We're talking about him again this week. We're probably going to end up talking about him again after next week. He consistently puts up numbers. He has a good receiving core. KJ Osborne stepped up. I feel like Cousins is a guy, sort of like Derek Carr, not the sexy name, but if he's in your lineup, he's not going to lose you a game, but he can occasionally steal one for you.
Yeah, he's got a tough matchup against Cleveland next week. I mean, that pass rush is no joke, as we just saw. And the Minnesota offensive line has not been great, but I think their secondary is beatable. So if Cousins can get it out quick, I mean, he can still put up in the numbers.
Jason Peters, so that doesn't really count. At this point, he's 40.
But the Vikings do have a terrible defense, so Cousins are going to have to keep slinging it to keep them in games. And so if you have a team like the Vikings who have a pretty good weapons around Cousins and a bad defense, to keep them in games, Cousins is going to have to sling it.
Yeah, he kept up with Russ.
Yeah, and that's why he's number 6 in fantasy scoring right now.
Yeah. Never thought that would happen. So
temper expectations against Cleveland to a T, but he's still startable.
Yeah, but he could be one of those guys you get now real cheap, and he could be your starter for the season. Or maybe you ride with two quarterbacks and you play the matchups the rest of the year, but you don't have to stream anymore. Because I mean, as fun as it is to stream quarterbacks, if you can get a guy where you no longer have to stream, I mean, that's really the goal out of all these waiver wire pickups.
Yeah.
So last QB we have is Sam Darnold, who actually looked pretty good last week on Thursday night. And I mean, well, it's Sam Darnold. I don't want to get too excited for him.
It's the same Cousins, the same premise.
And with Christian McCaffrey being gone for hopefully only a few weeks, we'll see how that changes the offense, because that was just, honestly, to me, that was just kind of like easy points where you just dump it off to CMC and let him go. He doesn't have that outlet anymore. So a lot of great weapons with the receivers, but I mean, CMC is a difference maker, and now the defense can key on the wide receivers and not worry about the running back. So curious to see how that looks, but he's one of those where you probably don't have to bid much at all, if anything, or if you're in a deeper league and you need a quarterback, I'm guessing Sam Darnold's going to be available for you. So he could still be better than who you have.
Yeah,
I did. Go ahead, Alex. Go ahead.
I was going to say, Darnold's a guy I want this week, but I'm not going to start this week, if that makes sense. I want to see how the offense will look without McCaffrey. Are they going to just let him pepper DJ Moore with 10 to 12 targets, which he absolutely should, but who knows how Joe Brady and Matt Rule are going to run that offense. I'd keep him on your bench this week and then play it by ear moving forward.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say about Darnold, it was interesting to see how he didn't throw a touchdown on Thursday. He got it done with his legs twice, and to see that, to have confidence in him at the goal line to run a read option like that and him actually make the read was interesting to see at the least. If they can still do that on the goal line, give him another option with McCaffrey out, it would help him going forward as well.
Yeah, I think tonight's also going to be telling with the game so the Cowboys looked really good last week against the Chargers defensively. So if they look strong against the Eagles tonight, I'd be concerned about that matchup with Darnold next week. But if the Cowboys look like the defense we expected going into the season, which was not good, then I actually would be okay with playing Darnold. If you needed a streamer, he to me kind of seems like one of those classic streamers for your deeper leagues, going against a good matchup, assuming the Cowboys do not look good defensively tonight. But that's a great segue to our running backs, because let's be honest, this is really the only waiver player that everyone's going to be talking about this week is going to be Chuba Hubbard. He's currently 11.3% rostered in ESPN, so probably a few CMC team managers. But I think he's going to be the one that's going to be picked up the most. It wouldn't shock me if he's close to 100% after waivers run this week. I think the big question is, how much do you guys think you should bid for him?
If you're the McCaffrey owner, I'd say 80%, because you're looking at 3 weeks where you need a fill-in. And if you drafted McCaffrey in the beginning and you probably came back in the second or third round with a running back, but you're relying on what you thought was your running back two as your RB1 now. And we saw Chubbard not Chubbard. What am I saying here? We saw Chuba he looked okay against the Texans, but he's no CMC. It's like Mike Davis. He's your Mike Davis from last year, but I think he prospects a little bit better than Mike Davis does. So I'd probably spend 80% of mine if I was a McCaffrey owner hampering for a running back right now. And if you're trying to hedge the McCaffrey owner out, you'll probably have to spend up as well.
Yeah, first, sorry for the technical issues right there, but I would definitely do agree with you there, Toby. People are going to have to spend big on him. It's he's CMC's replacement. Like you said, he's going to slide into what Mike Davis did last year, only hopefully better and more consistent with fantasy for that. But the good thing is McCaffrey hasn't been put on the IR, so they hope he's going to be back in less than 3 weeks. So it's one of those, if you're in a tight spot or desperate for running back, I'd be willing to throw a decent bit at him.
Yeah, so last season in one of my deeper leagues, I had the 101. So I had Christian McCaffrey, which was great until he got hurt. And then I had to spend, I think I spent like 51% of my fab the week he got hurt to get Mike Davis. And unfortunately, Mike Davis was a top 10 running back for the beginning part of the year. But for me, I don't know how good Chuba is going to be. He's a rookie.
I would throw a speculative ad out there too for Royce Freeman.
Yeah, I mean, for all we know, he's going to be more of a dominant ball carrier. We don't really know. As a CMC manager, I would understand having to spend a lot. If I don't have CMC, if I don't have a lot of fab already because I spent it on some other guys already, I'd probably sit it out. Or if you just want to put in a decent sized bid just to keep the CMC manager honest, so they don't get them for a low price, that would be fine. But I think a lot of people are really excited for Chuba, and I just don't have a lot of excitement for him. I could be wrong, but he's not CMC, nowhere close. So I would just be trying to manage my roster for these next, hopefully 3 weeks while CMC's out, maybe even less, and then go from there and save that fab for other players.
And there's a few leagues where Chuba, as we see by this 11.3%, but I know on Sleeper, most of my Sleeper leagues, Chuba's already rostered.
Mm-hmm.
So if you see Royce Freeman floating out there, and we haven't seen Chuba carry a workload yet, and Royce could be the hot hand in one game, and you have him on your bench for then, and then you have another running back. So at a cheaper price for Royce Freeman, Chuba's still the number one, but at a cheaper price for almost probably next to nothing, Royce Freeman isn't a bad guy to have on your bench. No,
I agree. So next one, I know Alex is a big fan of, and we've talked about him before, but his rostership's still only 28%. That's Kenneth Gainwell of the Eagles. So he's playing tonight. So we'll see if he looks great. I mean, he could be a hot waiver pickup anyway. But he had a great week 1. He had an okay week 2, but I mean, he's clearly the pass catching running back. And he's definitely outplaying Boston Scott, who's not really seen the field. So if you have a roster spot, I don't know why you wouldn't want someone like Kenneth Gainwell on your roster, and hopefully he starts getting more work as the season goes on.
Yeah, someone with his ability in both the rushing and receiving game, God forbid Sanders goes down, people are going to be scrambling for him the way people are for Chuba Hubbard. So why not get ahead of it? And let's say there's a hot new guy next week or the week after, you can drop him. No harm, no foul.
Yeah, and I think his value doesn't even hedge on if Miles goes down. You could see one of these receivers like a Quiz or Devontae or Rager go down, and you see his workload increase like a Demetric Felton's did for the Browns this past week when Landry went out and Odell was hobbled a little bit, but came back. But yeah, Gainwell seems to have a nose for the end zone as well. I mean, he had a 2-point conversion and a touchdown in week 1. So if they're going to keep him out there in the red zone as well, he's got to be on your team with the way the running back landscape is in fantasy football.
Yeah.
Yep.
You can always slide into a Naheem Hines-esque role.
Yeah, so he's not going to blow up every week, but I mean, as bye weeks come up, he's definitely a good flex option to throw in there, even in RB2 if your league's that deep where you might just get some good PPR points from him. So the last guy we're going to talk about for running backs, we talked about him last week, but I'm going to keep talking about him until his rostership goes up, is Jeff Wilson Jr., who's currently on IR. So this is one of those situations where if your league allows a $0 bid and you have an open spot on your IR, if you got to do some roster churning anyway, pick him up for nothing, put him on your IR spot, and then go and pick somebody else up and put them on your bench. And then we'll see what happens because, honestly, none of the San Francisco running backs have looked amazing yet, and they're still all banged up. So for all we know, Jeff Wilson could be the lead back once he's back, which could be in a few weeks. It could be longer. We really don't know, but give yourself that option. Worst case scenario, he doesn't look good, and you just cut him. He's going to cost you nothing to acquire.
Nothing. Yeah.
I think he should be eligible week 6, right?
I think it's week 6, but that's assuming he's healthy.
Yeah,
we don't know.
Assuming week 6 will be the earliest you can maybe have speculation that he's playing. But I mean, for him to sit on an IR spot and you do nothing and wait till he comes back, and with the way Elijah Mitchell, Hasty, and Sermon keep getting hurt, Mostert's already been out for the season. We've seen a rotating horse at San Francisco in their backfield throughout the past 2 years. So, and they have a good offensive line, so do it.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. So we have a lot more wide receivers to talk about, but I mean, I'll preface it with pretty much all these guys to me are pretty, for the most part, even until we get kind of towards the deeper guys. So it's more, to me, I would pick who you like more, put them in order, and then bid around the same amount. We're kind of recommending low, like 5% or less, give or take. Kind of depends on how your league spending is. We don't know that. We're just kind of giving recommendations for general leagues, and then just end up with whoever nobody else wants, and then they're all the same. So you get the lowest price guy. So first one, we got a couple of older wide receivers to talk about first with AJ Green and Emmanuel Sanders. Both of them had great games. AJ Green currently leads his team in targets now and receptions, passing Rondale Moore after a dead game from the rookie, which is unfortunate because we've been talking about him too. And Hopkins is a little banged up right now. So how do you guys feel about AJ Green or Emmanuel Sanders?
If I had to choose one, I guess I would go Sanders just for the fact that, Josh Allen's going to be slinging the rock around. And Sanders was able to get his without taking away from Diggs or Beasley. So it's one of those he won't see the double-digit targets, but he'll consistently be seeing anywhere between like 6 and 8 targets a game.
Yeah, I think I would take Sanders as well. And especially going into next week with the matchups they have, because the Rams defense is pretty good. But Sanders he has a nose for the end zone most of his career he has. And I just slightly trust Josh Allen a little bit more to spread it more around, because I feel like Murray gets a little bit of a nose for Hopkins and then to run a lot more as well, as we've seen already this season. And I like Christian Kirk. Christian Kirk surprised me in Arizona this year already, and he's still getting a good amount of the target share as well, along with AJ Green. And I mean, it's probably just biased, but AJ Green, I have a little bit of a sour taste in my mouth from the production we've seen, or the lack of production we've seen in recent years. So I'll take Sanders over AJ Green at this point.
No, I get all that. I think that's toss-ups for either. AJ Green said now 2 out of 3 weeks have been solid games. But yeah, there's a lot of mouths to feed on both teams, honestly. So
yeah,
I think it's more, like you said, if you're not a big fan of AJ Green, go with Sanders. If you prefer AJ Green, like none of us are going to argue that you're wrong in that one. I think it's a kind of dealer's choice of whatever you're more comfortable with. So next couple of guys we've talked about the last couple of weeks as well as Terrace Marshall Jr., 14.9% rostered, and Tim Patrick, 14% rostered. I think both these guys are interesting, with Marshall now not having CMC for a few weeks. He could see a little uptick, even though he's a wide receiver. There's a lot of targets going towards CMC, so he might now be able to enjoy some more targets. And then Tim Patrick, all of a sudden now is the number 2 wide receiver with Sutton, with KJ Hamler unfortunately tearing his ACL yesterday. So I think I prefer Tim Patrick. I think he's a little more long-term. He has less competition. But Terrace Marshall is also very exciting. And we've seen some flashes from him as well.
Yeah, Terrace Marshall, I think, gets even with Chuba there, Chuba's going to see the most, but I think Terrace will get more way of looks and get on the field a lot more. And he has a good stretch of defenses coming up with the Cowboys next week, the Eagles after that, and then he gets the Vikings. So for throwing an ad out there on a team that looks to have to throw the ball a little bit more because they are going to be missing CMC for at least 3 weeks is what we've heard, maybe sooner, maybe later. So I would take a flyer at him. And then with Tim Patrick, I think he should be the number probably 1 receiver to be added because KJ Hamler tore his ACL. We got news of that. So he's the number 2 there. And Teddy Bridgewater's looked fantastic. I know they've played the Giants, the Jaguars, and Jets, but we'll see when they get a real test. But he's going to funnel in even more targets now.
Yeah, I'd still probably go Terrace over Tim Patrick. Just for the fact, Marshall was already the wide receiver 2 in Carolina. He was seeing more consistent work than Robbie Anderson. So if anything, McCaffrey being out potentially for 3 weeks, it's one of those. He'll have a more stable floor in that 3-week window.
Cool. And then we have Brian Edwards, but also lump in with Renfro as well from the Raiders. Both of them have low rostership percentage. I think Renfro, you want to talk about him, Tobe, is a big PPR player.
Yes. Renfro just the safety blanket, it looks like, with him and Waller for Carr, and Carr keeps chunking the ball. But when he finds that safety blanket in Hunter Renfro, I don't think he's had less than 6 catches in the first 3 weeks. He finally found the end zone this past week, but even without that, he's still been a double-digit scorer in the first 3 weeks, and I think that has to take a little bit of notice for your fantasy rosters.
And Edwards seems like he has to warm up for the first 3 quarters, and he doesn't show up until the 4th quarter. But he's still putting up numbers, so you're definitely not picking up Edwards as stardom. Like you said, I would feel comfortable throwing Tim Patrick into my starting lineup if I had to at flex, because I'm dealing with injuries. I would not feel comfortable starting Edwards. He's more of those grab him now, see if he ends up continuing to improve, and then hopefully when bye weeks start hitting, you can then plug him in.
Yeah, Edwards' snap share has went up each of the last 3 weeks, which is good. He's seen 5 targets in 2 of the 3 games. And then against the Ravens, he had Marlon Humphrey. Was it Humphrey or Peters who tore his ACL?
Peters.
So he had Humphrey on him all game. And then against Miami, he was dealing with Xavier Howard and Byron Jones.
Yeah.
So he's had some tough matchups the first few weeks start the season. So hopefully that warming up is him like, okay, like this is who I'm going against. Let me get cooking.
That's fair. And then I'm going to go a little out of order, but I want to go back to you, Alex, with Quez Watkins, because I know he's your guy, even though he put you in a trash bag tonight. So we don't know what he's going to do yet tonight, because Monday Night Football is just now starting. So if you're watching this on Tuesday, we haven't seen the game yet. But before Monday Night Football is even going, I think he's one of those guys you can get in a deeper league, or even not that deep, and for free. And we'll see what he does tonight. But how do you feel about him, Alex?
He's a guy he's been used in a lot of different ways. If Sirianni will consistently be using him, he's worth having on the back end of your roster. Once again, not a guy you really need to be taking a big gamble on.
Cool. And then the last game I want to talk about, we got news this afternoon that Josh Gordon was reinstated by the league again, that he'll be signing with the Kansas City Chiefs. So I know that's going to grab a lot of headlines, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people out there being like, oh, Kansas City Chiefs, great offense, Josh Gordon, amazing. We all just want to kind of temper expectations. I'm sure he's still in great shape. He always talks about being in great shape, but he's, I think, 30 now, hasn't really played consistent football in years. And to me, I don't care what position you play. It's going to take some time to kind of get back in football shape, get used to the playbook, get used to that offense, fit in. It wouldn't shock me if it takes a month till we even see him really get comfortable, and we may never even see him blow up. I mean, he could be great too, but to me, he feels like a roster clogger right now. I'd rather let my league baits bid crazy amounts for no reason. If you want to throw in a $0 bid or a $1 bid or a $2 bid just to see what happens, if you have space in your roster. But to me, I'd rather let someone else deal with that headache. And if he keeps not performing, he'll end up getting dropped anyway. And then you can always pick him up later. But Josh Gordon seems like a really flashy name that just does not have a lot of substance behind him anymore.
You know what this situation reminds me of? Reminds me of Dez Bryant when he signed with the Saints. And he was I think he was 30, 31. And it was just smoke in the air. Dez Bryant didn't do a thing, which it could be different with Josh Gordon. Still throw $0 at him in a deep league or a deep bench. But I don't think he might get unreinstated by the time he's even on the active roster.
Yeah, because going back, wasn't it Dez, he tore his Achilles when he was –
Dez got hurt with the Saints. He never played with them, and then he got signed by the Ravens. Yeah, and then he did okay for the Ravens, but nothing noteworthy.
Nothing, yeah.
And that's coming from a Dez fan, so.
I'm happy to see Josh is back, that he's back in the league. I mean, he's been able to take care of what's been those demons off the field, so you'd love to see that for him. just hope it's something he can sustain long term.
No.
And
Yeah, absolutely.
have relevance.
Yeah, no, great that he's back. From a football standpoint, from a person standpoint, wonderful. From a fantasy football standpoint, seems like a headache. It's just a flashy name. Let your league mates splash the cash for him.
Like 2013.
Yeah, if you want to put in a $0 bid, go for it. If you have the roster space, but to me, he's just a roster clogger. Talking about roster cloggers, tight ends. If we thought last week was rough, it just continues. So Austin Hooper sneaks in at 47.4% rostered. OBJ's back, but other than that, they don't have a lot of passing options. So I think Hooper found another touchdown this week, but still only on like four receptions. So typical tight end. How do you guys feel about Austin Hooper?
I mean, with Landry out, I think it opens up a little bit more for the tight ends, but he's a touchdown or 3 points. That's what Austin Hooper is. So I'm not real excited, but if you need one, he's looked like he can catch touchdowns. He's in a good offense.
Yeah, none of the names are it's like, yo, let me go pick up Dawson Knox. Let me pick up Austin Hooper. It's just one of those. They're there. They're either gonna put up a 0 or, like you said, Toby, have like 2 for 18 and a touchdown and end up like tight end 9 on the week.
That's tight ends. But if you weren't excited about Austin Hooper, can I interest you in Evan Ingram? So he had another couple drops. I think he had a fumble last week. So again, doesn't sound great. So why are we talking about him? Well, everyone on the Giants is injured. Daniel Jones might not have a choice but to throw it to Evan Ingram, and hopefully he can catch it. So that's why he makes a list. It's just a speculative. If you really need a tight end, I mean, at least he has a shot at some opportunities, and we'll see what he does with it.
Evan Ingram could do so bad. Like last week, he said he had a couple drops and a fumble, and people get hurt, so we still have to talk about him.
Yep. I mean, he had over 100 targets last year, so
yeah.
Did nothing with them.
No, but I mean, at this point, when you're this deep in tight ends, you're just looking for opportunity, and he has an opportunity.
100 targets is as meaningless as Russell Gage's 100 targets last year.
Fair enough.
I would throw out the name Dan Arnold too. He just got traded to Jacksonville. Jacob Hollister just made Lawrence throw an interception, so you can see Dan Arnold be a sneaky, real deep league ad to get some targets there in Jacksonville.
Yeah, you got to be desperate, but I understand it. Tight end
Tyler Conklin looked good last week too. Yeah,
he did. And then we have Dawson Knox, might have been one of the best tight ends last week that nobody saw coming. I mean, let's be honest, the Bills just were throwing it all over the place.
Yeah.
I wouldn't expect that from Knox every week. I mean, this might have been his best game of the season. But it's a proficient offense. So, again, a tight end this deep, you're just looking for opportunities, and he has a shot at a touchdown. So he's somebody you can look at as well. He's only 4.4% rostered, so I'm sure he's available.
Yeah, you want guys to put up non-zeros, and he's a shot at that.
Yeah. All right. So before we get to defenses, as always, I just want to talk about Monkey Knife Fight real quick. So if you guys haven't played yet, Monkey Knife Fight, it's a lot of fun. Unique games. It's daily fantasy for a ton of sports. Basically kind of like a lot of different kind of prop bets. You're not setting a lineup, so it's really quick, easy. You bid so many different amounts, lots of different odds to win. A lot of fun. If you haven't tried it yet, first-time users, sign up with the code TRIPLEPLAY, and Monkey Knife Fight will match up to $100 of your first deposit, minimum of a $10 deposit. So remember that code is TRIPLEPLAY. And then to wrap it up for us, defenses are also pretty rough this week. Not going to lie. It was a struggle finding who had a good matchup that was under the 50% rostership percentage. So I came up with the Tennessee Titans because they're playing the Jets. And we've just seen the Jets be a dumpster fire the last couple of weeks. So why not go for the team playing them? Because Tennessee is only 8.1% rostered. And then the last one is the Colts. They're already 43.5% rostered. They're a solid defense. They have taken some injuries this past week. And they get Miami, who actually looked a lot better than I was expecting against the Raiders. But it's still Brissett, still nothing special. So if you're struggling and streaming at defense this week, those would be the two I'm looking at.
Yeah, I would definitely be more enticed for the Titans. Zach Wilson just pulling his best. Jameis doesn't know what color his team's jerseys are. Granted, one of them, it was that deflection that led to the pick to end the game. But still, I think he already has like 8 picks through 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And I like the Titans over the Colts as well. But if you are in a league where both of those are somehow owned, the Bengals don't look bad against Trevor Lawrence, who keeps throwing interceptions as well.
Yeah, they've been a surprisingly solid defense.
They got some good pass rush.
Lawrence leads the league in uncatchable balls. So
what a great stat.
and the Bengals are at home on Thursday as well.
Oh, and I didn't know it was a Thursday night game. Yeah, the Bengals are very enticing then. On a short week too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then normally we don't talk about trades or anything like that. We don't get those kind of questions, but we did get a question from JP on YouTube. So thanks for checking out our episode. But I'm going to preface this. He's wanting to know, do you trade Deontay Johnson and Madison to the Cook team for, I'm assuming that's Calvin Ridley. He did not specify PPR or anything like that. So Deontay Johnson and Madison for Calvin Ridley.
Yes.
I would as well. You don't know how long Deontay's going to be out for with the knee injury. But what we do know is Ben Roethlisberger is one of the 3 worst quarterbacks in the league right now. And next to Kyle Pitts, no one else is going to be catching the ball in Atlanta besides Ridley. I'd absolutely make that move.
And Madison seems like almost a 1-week rental with some of the news we got about Cook.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good trade. I mean, Ridley's definitely a step up. He hasn't had a great start to the season, but you're expecting better things, so go for it. And then, we got one more question from KTC Bull on YouTube. Is, should I start Saquon this week? Yes. I don't know how you're benching him.
You put the draft capital in.
Yeah, I mean, I think he was the second most. Had the second most snaps of all running backs this past week, so he's finally staying on the field. He looks solid. It was definitely his best week, and they're going against the New Orleans Saints, who've had some injuries at defense. They've definitely been hit by the injury bug. So I just don't know, unless your team is absolutely stacked at running back, I don't know how you could have enough running backs better than Saquon to not.
Yeah.
So I'd rather lose with Saquon in my starting lineup than lose with him on my bench when he goes off.
Yeah, and who else is gonna be taking quality targets or snaps for the Giants? For some reason, Daniel Jones doesn't like Galladay, so I would absolutely keep Saquon in and just hope he sees 25 total touches and finds the end zone once.
Yep, and we'll finish with this last question. Do I keep Tyreek Hill started even after his 2 bad games in a row? Absolutely.
Yes.
Tyreek Hill is one of the best wide receivers. Happens every year. He's going to have a couple bad games here and there, and then he's going to go off for 30 or 40 points. So you drafted Tyreek Hill probably in the 1st or 2nd round. You're always going to start him unless he's hurt and not playing, or it's his bye week. It's part of fantasy. You just got to roll with the bad weeks and hope that other players in your team make up for it. And that's just how it works sometimes.
Yeah,
say anything better.
Hit the nail on the head.
Do you guys have anything to plug this week?
Wallpaper Wednesdays every Wednesday. I was late last Wednesday, so sorry about that. But no, but that's it.
Cool.
I'm actually going to be starting a start-sit column with a triple play that we're going to try and get out before Thursday night games. If not, it'll be before obviously before the Sunday slate.
Awesome. Looking forward to that. And then I still have my weekly article with Fantasy and Frames for QB and tight end streamers, which will be a fun one this week again for tight ends. But we will try our best to get you out there. So this week for triple play, we have our weekly football show tomorrow. We got the Super Fantasy Bros as well, and then they have a end of the season wrapping up for the baseball pod as well this week. So best way to support the show, subscribe to the Triple Play Fantasy channel on YouTube. That way you don't miss any of these shows. Last week there was an awesome interview with David with Ryan Clark. So if you haven't seen that yet, definitely check it out. It was a great interview. But that's why you want us to subscribe to the YouTube channel so you don't miss any of our shows. And then for this show, follow us at the Tripwire Pod on Twitter, and then follow all of us as well individually. So we'll be putting out work. We'll put out our content as well. And also you see all the great graphics that Toby does. He does all our graphics for the show as well. So with that, guys, have a good night. Enjoy the game. Go Cowboys. Sorry. And we'll see. We'll see if let's see if Joe or I, one of us, is getting wet from the water bet. Make that clear.
Go Bird.
Have a good night, guys.